Imagine a love so dark, so consuming, it demands not just your heart, but your very soul. A love forged in the crucible of shared secrets, where the scent of pine and salt in the air mingles with the metallic tang of blood. You found someone who doesn't flinch when you whisper that a body needs to disappear. Someone who understands the shadowed corners of your mind, the desperate pragmatism that keeps you alive. They accept you. They even help you. But what if the person who helps you bury your deepest, most dangerous secrets is the very same person who came to bury you? What if the man who helps you feed human remains to a wood chipper is the man who was sent to end your life, only to fall madly, possessively in love with the monster he was meant to destroy? This is the terrifying, intoxicating paradox at the beating, bloody heart of Brynne Weaver's Harvest Season, a thriller that rips apart conventional notions of love, justice, and identity, leaving a trail of dismembered truths in its wake. Welcome to Quiet Books, where dark thrillers, shocking twists, and unforgettable endings are broken down one meticulously decoded story at a time. Today, we're not just recounting a story. We're peeling back the layers of a novel where the past isn't just haunting, it's actively hunting, and where the most dangerous secrets are the ones we keep, not from others, but from ourselves. Our story begins in Cape Carnage, Maine, a town whose name isn't just a grim warning, but a chilling promise. Here, nestled amongst the meticulously tended rhododendrons of Lancaster Manor, we find Thresh Harper. But Thresh's gardening duties extend far beyond pruning roses and tending to the grounds. At her feet, a bloody tarp holds the dismembered remains of a tourist, Arthur's latest mistake. Arthur, her aging, eccentric mentor who resides in the imposing manor, has a penchant for eliminating undesirable visitors, and Thresh is usually left to handle the grim aftermath. So, with an axe in hand, she's preparing to feed the body parts to her trusty wood chipper, affectionately nicknamed Cookie Monster. This isn't just a gruesome detail. It's our immediate, visceral introduction to Thresh's world, where violence is an unnerving normalcy, and she herself is a hardened, pragmatic participant. She's not a victim of circumstance. She's a survivor who has carved out a life in the shadows, and she's exceptionally good at what she does, having mastered the art of disappearance and disposal. This opening scene immediately establishes the high stakes and Thresh's chilling competence, forcing us to question her morality and her past. A raven, Morpheus, caws a familiar warning from a nearby branch. Nolan, her boyfriend, is coming. And judging by his terse, unamused text message earlier, a message that felt less like a lover's greeting and more like a death sentence, he's not here for a romantic rendezvous. He's here to murder her. This isn't speculation. It's a cold, hard fact Thresh has been living with, a sword of Damocles hanging over her head, a testament to the utterly twisted nature of her relationship. Why would her boyfriend want to kill her? What dark secret could possibly justify such an act? The mystery immediately deepens, pulling us into Thresh's precarious existence. Nolan arrives, a coiled spring of fury, his anger a palpable force in the morning air. But his rage isn't just about the broad daylight body disposal, a casual act of violence that would horrify anyone else. He brings devastating news that shatters Thresh's already fragile sense of security. Vinnie Machino, the drone operator who worked for the recently deceased amateur investigator Sam Porter, is also dead. And now, a full-blown murder investigation is underway, putting Thresh's casual, bloody routine into terrifying new perspective. This isn't just a local problem. It's a direct, existential threat to their meticulously crafted, violent existence. The stakes have just been raised exponentially, and Nolan knows it. The world is closing in, and their macabre dance of death can no longer remain hidden in the shadows. The tension between them is a live wire, sparking with unspoken accusations and years of hidden truths. Nolan rips the axe from Thresh's hand, his eyes burning with a question that goes far deeper than the current predicament, far beyond the fresh body parts on the tarp. He knows. He found her old van, its ID number revealing a name Thresh has tried desperately to bury. A name that could unravel her entire life. Autumn Bower. This isn't merely a discovery. It's an act of deep, almost invasive knowledge, tearing away the carefully constructed facade she's maintained for years. The name hits Thresh like a physical blow, stripping away years of carefully constructed identity, leaving her raw and exposed. Autumn Bower, the woman who faked her own death 4 years ago, leaving behind a horrific car crash and a trail of bodies. This isn't just a revelation of identity, it's a seismic shift in their entire relationship, recontextualizing every interaction they've had, every shared glance, every touch. Nolan, it turns out, was originally in Cape Carnage to hunt the woman he believed to be Harper Starling, the driver responsible for his brother Billy's death in that very crash. And for weeks, he'd believed that woman was Thresh. He was ready to kill her. The irony, the sheer brutal twist of fate is agonizing for him. Nolan, the avenging angel, had fallen in love with his target, only to discover she was never his target at all. He had been prepared to commit the ultimate act of vengeance, only to be confronted with the horrifying truth that his intended victim was, in fact, an innocent woman caught in a web of someone else's making. This revelation completely redefines Nolan's personal quest and his relationship with Thresh, twisting it into something far more complex and dangerous. Thresh, now stripped bare of her carefully constructed lies, confesses the full, horrific truth that has haunted her for years. She recounts her harrowing escape from the clutches of serial killer Harvey Meade, the crushing guilt over her boyfriend Adam's death, the terrifying night of the crash where she was wrongly implicated, and her desperate decision to assume the identity of another dead woman, Harper Starling, to disappear completely. She made a promise to Arthur, her eccentric, homicidal mentor, to never reveal her true identity, a promise she's held on to with fierce, almost desperate loyalty, for Arthur truly became the only family she had left. But the weight of living as a ghost, the constant fear and loneliness, has been crushing her, a silent, internal scream. This confession is a turning point, not just for Thresh, but for Nolan, who now understands the depth of her trauma, the impossible choices she's made, and the profound reasons behind her carefully guarded secrets. It's a moment of devastating vulnerability that cracks open the hardened shell she's built around herself, allowing a glimpse into the raw pain that drives her every decision. Nolan is devastated, not by the revelation of her dark past itself, but by the gut-wrenching fact that he almost murdered an innocent woman. His entire quest for revenge was based on a lie, a tragic misunderstanding that nearly cost him his humanity. He rages at her, not for the secrets she kept, but for the immense danger she put herself in, and the terrifying monster he himself became because of this misunderstanding. He realizes he's fought the impulse to kill her for weeks, only to discover she was never his target, that the woman he fell for was a victim, not a perpetrator. This moment redefines their connection, twisting it from a mutual dance with death into something far more protective and complex for Nolan. He's no longer a hunter consumed by vengeance. He's a guardian, furious that she couldn't trust him with her truth, furious at the world that forced her into such a desperate corner. His anger is rooted in a profound sense of injustice and a terrifying realization of how close he came to becoming the very monster he hunted. He is now bound to her, not by a quest for revenge, but by a desperate, possessive need to protect her. Their fraught conversation is cut short by the wail of a distant siren. While it turns out to be an ambulance, a false alarm in this context, the fear is palpable, immediate. They are exposed. They have to cover their tracks, and quickly. Nolan, making a silent vow, a profound shift in his purpose, takes Thresh's gloves, starts the wood chipper, and disposes of the body with brutal efficiency. Then, without another word, he leaves. The implication is clear, chilling. No more murders, no more loose ends, no more of Arthur's mistakes for Thresh to clean up alone. This is a new chapter, and Nolan is taking control, not as her executioner, but as her desperate, ruthless protector. His actions speak louder than any words, signaling his complete commitment to her, regardless of the cost to his own soul. As Nolan drives away, numb with the revelations, he grapples with the truth that has upended his entire existence. He reflects on his original intent, the weapons in his backpack, the scrapbook of his intended victims, now utterly meaningless, a grim testament to a misdirected vengeance. He sees the bloodstain in the parking lot where Thresh hit Vinny, a stark reminder of the accelerating danger. He knows he has to protect her, not just from the law, but from herself and her past, from the very choices she's been forced to make. The thought of what he almost did, the innocent woman he almost tortured and killed, makes him physically sick, a visceral rejection of his former self. His focus shifts completely. Arthur, Thresh's unpredictable, homicidal mentor, is now a profound liability. His declining mental state, exacerbated by early Alzheimer's, makes him a danger to Thresh, a ticking time bomb of potential exposure. Nolan decides he must get Thresh away from Arthur and ensure Arthur doesn't create more bodies for them to bury. His mission has fundamentally changed from revenge to protection, a testament to the powerful, if twisted, love he's developed for Thresh, a love that has warped his moral compass, but solidified his resolve. Back at the Capeside Inn, Nolan encounters Irene, the innkeeper, a fount of local gossip and sharp observations. She casually confirms the escalating situation. Sheriff Yates was stabbed at the distillery where Sam Porter died, and Yates shot his attacker. The town is abuzz with gossip, the rumor mill churning furiously. And the truth, Irene says with a knowing, almost predatory look, always comes out. This seemingly innocuous conversation is a crucial piece of the puzzle, revealing the official narrative, Yates killed Vinny in self-defense, and hinting at the deeper truths Irene, and perhaps others, suspect. The stage is being set for a confrontation with a much more dangerous force than local law enforcement. Just as Nolan is burning his scrapbook, destroying the physical embodiment of his revenge mission, symbolically incinerating his past identity, Sheriff Yates appears. The sheriff, his arm in a sling, makes a chillingly casual observation about the bloodstain in the parking lot, the very spot where Thresh hit Vinny. It's a subtle probe, a test of Nolan's reaction, and a clear indication that Yates misses nothing. Then, in a move that feels less like a request and more like a veiled threat, Yates asks Nolan, a search and rescue specialist, to help with a new missing person case. He knows Nolan has been spending time with Thresh. He mentions Thresh's recent troubles and how Cape Carnage is a community that cares, subtly hinting at his awareness of their connection and his ability to manipulate it. Nolan, realizing he's being manipulated, realizing the game Yates is playing, agrees, sacrificing his freedom to protect Thresh. He is now caught in Yates's web, forced to play along, becoming an unwitting pawn in a larger, more sinister game he doesn't yet fully comprehend. This encounter establishes Yates as a formidable, intelligent antagonist, a master manipulator who sees the strings and knows how to pull them. Meanwhile, Lucas, Arthur's grandson, arrives at Lancaster Manor, questioning his grandfather's latest fall. Thresh, still reeling from Nolan's confrontation and the seismic shift in her life, tries to brush it off, knowing Arthur's fall was merely another euphemism for a violent act, another body to dispose of. She feels the crushing weight of her promises to Arthur, her responsibility to him, and the looming threat of the sleuth seekers, online amateur investigators who will soon descend on Cape Carnage, looking for answers about Sam and Vinny. With her identity exposed to Nolan and the town's secrets unraveling at an alarming pace, Thresh knows her carefully constructed life is about to shatter. The stage is set for a devastating collision of past and present, truth and lies, and Thresh, for all her competence, feels increasingly cornered. The unsettling discovery of a new body at the Lancaster distillery has drawn the police, but the real danger for Harper, the name she now reluctantly uses, a constant reminder of her assumed identity, lurks closer than she can imagine. Her adopted grandfather, Arthur, a charming but ruthless serial killer, is showing undeniable signs of dementia. His biological grandson, Lucas, suggests moving Arthur to a care home, the Whispering Pines, a practical solution that feels like a death sentence to Harper. She's already stretched thin managing Arthur's hobby and the distillery, and she feels the weight of guilt, a profound sense of betrayal at the thought of abandoning him. She knows Arthur would despise being confined, and she's not even family by blood, despite Arthur feeling like her only family, the one person who gave her a new life after her own was destroyed. Her loyalty to Arthur, a man who gave her a new life, however bloody, is absolute, even if that life is steeped in blood. This internal conflict highlights Harper's complex morality and the deep-seated trauma that binds her to Arthur. But Arthur, it turns out, is far more cunning than his age and supposed mental decline suggest. He wasn't asleep. He was listening. He emerges, startling Harper, threatening to disinherit Lucas if he's ever sent away. Harper, exasperated by his manipulation, reminds him of the tourist he just lured into the cemetery, the one she had to mulch into compost. Arthur feigns confusion about Nolan Rhodes, the man who supposedly handed over Arthur's murder bag for the deed. Harper, knowing Arthur's tricks, his ability to weaponize his age and inconsistent memory, gives him just enough information for him to save face, to maintain his carefully crafted illusion of frailty. He even chastises Harper for hiding his bag of poisons and his beloved grimoire, his murder journal, a meticulous record of his life's work. This isn't just an old man losing his mind. It's a master manipulator at work, still pulling the strings, and Harper is deeply entangled in his web, a willing accomplice bound by a twisted sense of love and obligation. This scene firmly establishes Arthur as a dangerous, unpredictable force, even in his supposed decline, and further highlights Harper's entrapment. The conversation with Arthur leaves Harper deeply conflicted, her emotions a tangled knot of love, resentment, and fear. Her life is a labyrinth of responsibilities and secrets, all tied to Arthur. She desperately wants something for herself, something untainted by the darkness, something that feels pure and unburdened. And that something is Nolan. But to protect him, to keep him safe from the inevitable fallout of her life, she feels she must push him away, sever the dangerous connection. She texts Nolan, urging him to leave Cape Carnage before the sleuth seekers, online true crime enthusiasts who are like a swarm of hungry locusts, descend. Then, with a heavy heart, she puts her phone on Do Not Disturb, attempting to sever the dangerous connection, to sacrifice her own burgeoning happiness for his perceived safety. Arthur, sensing her anguish, apologizes for his harshness, confessing he's not ready to leave his home, or more chillingly, himself, a subtle admission of his own attachment to his murderous identity. Harper, caught in a maelstrom of grief and guilt, whispers, "Me neither," a silent acknowledgement of her own unraveling identity, her inability to escape the person she has become. She agrees to stay for dinner, but the moment she presses send on her message to Nolan, a part of her shatters, a piece of her hope for a different future. Later that night, Harper makes her way to Arthur's dumping ground by the Ballantine River, the mulched remains of the tourist heavy in her pack, a grim burden she carries alone. She'd secretly hoped Nolan would show up, to argue, to defy her command, to refuse to leave her. But he hadn't. Checking the sleuth seeker's Discord, she sees more chatter, more threats of their imminent arrival, the digital noose tightening around her neck. Suddenly, a rustling in the woods puts her on high alert. Bear tracks in the mud confirm her fear. She prepares her bear spray and shovel, yelling warnings into the dark, a primal scream into the void. But when a figure emerges from the tree line, she doesn't hesitate. She sprays. She swings. A pained cry breaks the night. It's Nolan. He's furious, drenched and burning from the bear spray, and now sporting a shovel-induced facial injury. He demands to know why she's always attacking him, a dark humor in his exasperation. Harper, reeling from the mistake, pours water over his face, explaining, with frantic apologies, that she thought he was a bear. But the real confrontation, the emotional reckoning, is yet to come. Nolan, refusing to leave as she'd texted, forces her to say it to his face. Get the fuck out of Cape Carnage. His response is a raw, guttural no. He grabs her, not violently, but with desperate intensity, silencing her pleas to leave, to save himself. He confesses his love, a raw, aching admission, then tells her not to say anything back. He doesn't want her to feel pressured, to wonder if her words are genuine, if they are born of fear or true feeling. He just wants her to promise she won't tell him if she loves him. Not tonight. In that moment of shared vulnerability and undeniable connection, a bond forged in fear and defiance, Harper crushes her lips to his, a kiss of blood and anguish, her actions speaking where her words are forbidden. It's a moment of profound, dangerous intimacy, born from defiance and a shared understanding of their own darkness, sealing their fates in a way neither of them can now escape. They make love on the very ground where Arthur's victims lie buried, a darkly ironic act of defiance and intimacy, a twisted communion with their shared sin. Harper whispers, "We just fucked on a serial killer's dumping ground." Nolan, unfazed, almost amused, agrees. He cleans her by the river, a silent ritual of shared sin and burgeoning, possessive love, washing away the evidence of their passion, but not the indelible mark it leaves on their souls. Despite her earlier resolve, Harper finds she cannot force him to leave. Their fates are now inextricably linked, bound by blood and a dangerous, undeniable attraction. Their grim work continues as they exhume more of Arthur's past victims from the riverbank, a macabre archaeological dig into a serial killer's history. Nolan reveals a shocking development. He's been roped into leading the search and rescue efforts for the missing tourist. This is a double-edged sword. He plans to use his position to misdirect the search, plant false clues, and gather intelligence, becoming the fox guarding the henhouse, an insider actively working against the investigation. He's already learned that Sheriff Yates believes Vinnie Machino attacked Sam, and Yates killed Vinnie in self-defense. This narrative, while convenient for Yates, doesn't quite sit right with Harper, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes. Nolan, citing the escalating danger, announces he's moving into Harper's cottage, a decisive, protective move. Harper, though hesitant, agrees, understanding the desperate need for mutual protection, for a united front against the encroaching threats. She reveals other potential dumping grounds for Arthur's victims: the distillery's old grain shed, a defunct silver mine, and even Lancaster Manor itself. The sheer scale of Arthur's crimes is truly staggering, a decades-long reign of quiet terror that Harper has been complicit in, and now Nolan is willingly stepping into that dark legacy alongside her. Back at the cottage, Nolan consciously chooses the guest room, respecting Harper's space, despite his longing, wanting to build trust, not simply possess her. He wants to protect her, not smother her. But in the dead of night, Harper quietly enters his room, sliding into bed beside him. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to, just seeks comfort, a silent acknowledgement of her growing dependence on him, a tacit acceptance of their dangerous bond. Nolan, haunted by dreams of Harper drowning, dreams that are both literal and symbolic of her precarious existence, finds peace in her presence, sleeping soundly for the first time in a long while, her proximity a balm to his tormented soul. He wakes early, leaving her a spare key, a symbol of his commitment and trust, and heads to meet Sheriff Yates. At the coffee shop, Yates thanks Nolan for taking charge of the search, his tone deceptively cordial. Nolan confidently suggests focusing efforts on a specific area, offering a plausible explanation for how the tourist's dog might have found its way back to the Airbnb, a carefully crafted lie designed to misdirect. Yet Yates still seems to harbor a flicker of suspicion, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Nolan internally navigates the treacherous path of deception, his every word a calculated misdirection, knowing that one wrong move could expose everything and destroy Harper's carefully constructed life. He is now fully immersed in Harper's world of lies, becoming an active participant in its preservation, a willing accomplice in the unraveling of justice. The hunter has truly become the guardian, and a master of deception in his own right. The morning light in Cape Carnage always seemed to hold a sinister sheen, but for Nolan, it felt particularly cold, reflecting the chilling truths he was forced to confront. Over coffee, Sheriff Yates, with a casualness that pricked at Nolan's nerves, mentioned the evidence found in Sam Porter's car: an incense holder, an odd knife, and a Texas Tech sweater, all bagged and marked Clark Road. The name alone sent a jolt through Nolan, a flicker of recognition. But it was the sweater that truly iced him. He knew exactly what it meant. It was the same sweater Harper wore in her old YouTube videos, the ones where she was Autumn Bauer. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Harper's past, her true identity, was no longer a secret. Porter had found it, and now Yates had the clues, pieces of a puzzle that could unravel everything, exposing Harper to the world. Nolan's immediate thought wasn't about justice, or even about his brother's death anymore, but about damage control. He needed to find a way to plant enough false trails, to weave enough deception, to lead the search away from Harper, away from the devastating truth that Yates was now so dangerously close to discover. Meanwhile, back at her cottage, Harper woke to Nolan's absence, a handwritten note on the counter, and the familiar ache of a past she couldn't escape. Her eyes landed on the chessboard. The Black Knight, a piece that always brought back memories of Adam, her missing partner, was out of place. It was a stark reminder of the trauma she carried, a part of herself she felt she had to shield Nolan from, fearing that to let him in completely would only invite more loss, more pain. But her past wasn't just lurking in her memories. It was actively hunting her. Her phone buzzed. A Discord notification from the Sleuth Seekers, the online true crime community obsessed with Cape Carnage. A relentless digital mob. A user, Knight of Truth, had posted a grainy photo. It was her, walking away from Maya's magical mixtures, taken by Sam Porter, with his frantic handwriting demanding to know her identity. The net was tightening, and Harper's carefully constructed identity, the very foundation of her survival, was about to be obliterated. Later, in the chaos of the Search and Rescue Command Center, a hive of activity and false hope, Nolan spotted Harper. She had brazenly walked into the lion's den, disguised as a concerned volunteer, a testament to her fierce independence and her desperate need for control. He pulled her aside, his voice a low, furious whisper, barely concealed by the surrounding noise. He knew about the Texas Tech sweater, the incense holder, the knife, the relics of her former life as Autumn Bauer, now in Yates's possession. He knew about the Discord post, the photo. He told her the Sleuth Seekers were coming, that her cover was blown, and that her presence here, in the heart of the investigation, was a suicide mission. Their tense standoff, a battle of wills and fears, was shattered by Sheriff Yates, who approached with a deceptive grin, his presence always a looming threat, a subtle predator in plain sight. Yates, with an unsettling cheerfulness that belied his true intentions, announced they were expanding the search to include 2 more missing persons, Sean McMillan, the tourist Harper had encountered at the hospital, and Jake Hornell. The sheriff then turned his focus on Harper, his gaze sharp, probing, and unnervingly knowing. He revealed Sam Porter had provided drone footage showing her talking to Hornell the day before Porter's death. He even asked about rumors of Harper and Hornell dating, a clear attempt to trip her up, to see if she would lie, to test her composure. Harper, quick-witted, deflected, claiming Yates was confusing her with Nolan, a desperate but effective dodge. Yates, seemingly satisfied, then pivoted. Mrs. Evanston, whose missing husband Peter was the official focus of the search, approached. Her dog, Queenie, usually vicious and aggressive, immediately bounded to Harper, licking her hand. Mrs. Evanston's eyes narrowed, demanding to know if Harper had seen her dog before. Harper, ever the manipulator, ever the survivor, produced a piece of beef jerky, instantly pacifying the animal. But the moment was a glaring red flag for both Mrs. Evanston and the observant Yates, who missed nothing. This entire interaction is a masterclass in psychological manipulation by Yates, subtly gathering information, testing boundaries, and planting seeds of doubt. Instead of sending Harper to a remote search area where she might plant evidence, Yates, with a subtle smirk that revealed far more than he intended, assigned her to the Lancaster distillery grounds with Lucas, the exact site where Sam Porter had met his end. He then casually mentioned another missing person, Bryce Mahoney, whom Harper had certainly encountered, given her secrets. Nolan watched, frustrated, as Harper's face gave away a flicker of recognition, a tiny vein pulsing at her temple, a silent confirmation of her guilt. He begged her to let him in, to trust him, to share the burden. But Harper, fearing the inevitable loss that followed love, simply walked away, leaving him in the dark, heading towards the distillery. She knew. The quiet desperation in Lucas's voice was unmistakable. He and Harper talked openly about Arthur's worsening Alzheimer's, discussing the grim necessity of a memory care facility, Whispering Pines. Harper, despite her hardened exterior, felt the raw, unfair sadness of it all. This wasn't just about Arthur's decline. It was a shared burden, a tacit acknowledgement of the darkness they both navigated, bound by their love for the old man and the secrets he held. For Lucas, it was the sadness of losing his grandfather. For Harper, it was the tragedy of losing the only family she had left, the man who had sheltered her in his own twisted way. But Harper had her own grim tasks to complete, tasks that Lucas, in his innocence, could never comprehend. While the official search party fanned out across Arthur's sprawling property, a futile exercise in misdirection, Harper slipped away. Her true objective? The old grain shed, Arthur's first burial ground. She'd never been inside, but Arthur had described it. The place where he'd hidden his very first victim, at 16. A grim initiation into a lifetime of murder. Now, stepping into the musty air, the scent of decay mingling with old grain, Harper knew the bodies they'd recently moved from the Ballantine River property were just the tip of a much deeper iceberg. 16 more lay beneath her feet here. A chilling testament to Arthur's decades-long reign of quiet terror. A legacy of death she was now complicit in preserving. Her mission wasn't to disturb them, but to secure Arthur's legacy, to protect his secrets. From his secret bag, a satchel of tools and memories, she pulled out his most prized possession, the grimoire, his leather-bound journal documenting every kill, every gravesite, and his obsessive, decades-long theories about La Plume, the man who killed his daughter Poppy. It was a record of both his monstrous crimes and his profound, unresolved grief, a twisted testament to a broken man. Harper tucked the grimoire, along with Peter Evanston's clothes, another of Arthur's victims, into a hollow in the rafters. She was taking them out of play, preserving Arthur's secrets, and ensuring his final victim wouldn't taint his true legacy, his carefully curated history of vengeance. Before leaving, she also found a curious, bookmarked farmer's almanac. On page 69, a handwritten, poetic note, clearly not Arthur's, posed an unsettling mystery. A forgotten piece of history, left to decay, hinting at a connection to La Plume that Harper couldn't yet grasp. The almanac, with its cryptic verse, felt like a silent, watchful eye, a clue waiting to be deciphered, a new layer to the already complex mystery of Cape Carnage. Outside, a familiar voice cut through the air, laced with tension. Lucas was talking to Maxine Yates, his childhood crush and the sheriff's daughter. Maxine, seemingly delicate, but with an undeniable edge, had returned to Cape Carnage for work, specifically to develop a new boutique resort on the Ballantine River property, the very land where Harper and Arthur had just exhumed bodies. The irony was palpable, the potential for disaster immense, a collision course set between development and buried secrets. Harper, seeing Lucas's awkward longing, couldn't resist a playful attempt at matchmaking, a fleeting moment of normalcy in her chaotic life, leaving the two to stumble through their reunion, utterly unaware of the lurking danger, the bodies beneath their feet, and the secrets Harper was desperately trying to keep buried. Later, back at her cottage, Harper found Nolan. He'd been documenting her every nuance in a personal scrapbook, a chilling display of his obsessive gaze, yet a sign of his desperate attempt to understand her, to piece together the fragments of the woman he loved. But something else caught Harper's eye, something subtle but unsettling. The black knight on her chessboard had been moved. Nolan, seeing her alarm, quickly claimed he'd moved it, a small, casual lie that settled Harper's immediate unease. He inadvertently, or intentionally, covered for an unknown presence, misdirecting Harper from the real, subtle intrusion into her private space. This seemingly minor detail is a crucial red herring, a seed of misdirection planted for both Harper and the audience, setting up a later, far more sinister reveal. The conversation quickly turned to Bryce Mahoney, another of Arthur's victims. Harper, with characteristic bluntness, confirmed his bone was in her freezer, an unceremonious end for a man who'd crossed Arthur. But Nolan wanted more than just facts. He wanted her secrets, her deepest truths, and in return, he offered his own. Harper, ever the provocateur, ever testing the boundaries of their dark connection, demanded a story. His first kill. She was pushing him, challenging him, seeking to understand the darkness that mirrored her own. With a dark intensity, Nolan confessed. Mark Beaumont wasn't his first victim, as he had previously implied. It was Marcus Urquhart, an 18-year-old bully who had brutally attacked Nolan's younger brother Billy for his stutter, leaving him traumatized. Nolan, consumed by rage and a chilling sense of justice, a thirst for vengeance that ran deep in his veins, meticulously framed a local sex offender, Clinton Taff, with stolen evidence, ensuring the blame would fall elsewhere. Then, he hunted Marcus down in the same alley where Billy was left for dead. He choked him, feeling no guilt, only profound, chilling satisfaction. This confession reveals the true depth of Nolan's own capacity for violence and his twisted sense of justice, a mirror image of Arthur's own motivations, but born from a place of protective rage rather than detached pleasure. It explains the darkness that drew him to Harper, the shadow that recognized its own. As Nolan recounted the chilling details, Harper's response was not fear or disgust, but a deep, primal attraction. She saw past the societal judgment, past the label of monster, recognizing a kindred spirit, a reflection of her own shadowed soul. Nolan, stripped bare of his carefully constructed facade, found solace in her acceptance, in her profound lack of judgment. "You are a villain, Nolan Rhodes," Harper said, her eyes shining with dark admiration, "and I wouldn't want you any other way." In that moment, their shared darkness bound them irrevocably, a terrifying, intoxicating union, forged in blood and vengeance, in mutual understanding and acceptance of their most monstrous selves. This is the true beginning of their twisted love story, one built on a foundation of shared secrets and a mutual understanding of each other's capacity for darkness, a love that would defy all conventional morality. The air in Autumn Bower's cottage still carried the ghostly scent of Palo Santo, the same exotic incense found in Sam Porter's car. For Sheriff Yates, this wasn't just a coincidence, it was a chilling confirmation. The woman living under the name Harper Starling was, in fact, Autumn Bower. But she was more than just a ghost of the past. She was a chrysalis, ripe for transformation, and Yates, in his twisted mind, was ready to peel back her layers, to complete his masterpiece. This is the moment we fully understand Yates's obsession, his insidious agenda, and his true identity.
Yates moved through the cottage, his gloved hands touching old photographs with a possessive reverence. A picture of a young, innocent Autumn, a life before the fire. Another of her as Harper, standing with Arthur, holding a gardening trophy, a symbol of her adopted life. And then one with Nolan Rhodes, her rabid protector, as Yates chillingly mused. A grin stretched across Yates's face, reflecting in the glass, a predatory glint in his eyes. He saw the chessboard on the table, its pieces set, a game in progress. With a deliberate move, he picked up the Black Knight, slipping it into his pocket. A game had indeed begun, and Yates, the true LaPlume, was making his play, a silent declaration of his involvement. This confirms the earlier red herring of the Black Knight's movement and explicitly reveals Yates as the intruder, the manipulator, and the ultimate antagonist, the architect of Harper's suffering.
He remembered Arthur Lancaster, 30 years ago, broken on the floor, cradling his daughter Poppy's lifeless head, her body a canvas for Yates's poetic, bloody script. He'd killed her, leaving Arthur to raise Lucas alone, an act of calculated cruelty. It was a moment of artistic satisfaction that had set Yates on his dark path, a defining act of his monstrous identity. He understood that this new game, with Autumn Bauer and Nolan Rhodes, would be just as fulfilling, just as artistically rewarding. Yates sees himself as an artist, a creator of suffering and transformation, and Autumn Bauer, with her tragic past and her desperate attempts at reinvention, is his ultimate masterpiece, a legacy to be crafted through destruction and controlled chaos. His motive is not justice, but a perverse, aesthetic pleasure in the unraveling of lives.
Meanwhile, Nolan grappled with his own demons and the growing, relentless threat to Harper. The online sleuth seekers were closing in, their digital clamor growing louder, more insistent. Their new leader, Knight of Truth, had uploaded Harper's photo, pledging to uncover her identity, to expose her to the world. Nolan knew Sam Porter had likely dug into Harper's past, uncovering the same devastating truths that Yates now held, and now Knight of Truth was following the same dangerous trail. He feared Harper's fragile life, her carefully constructed piece, would be unraveled, just as Sam had begun to do at the theater. Nolan's mind was a battlefield of obsession and guilt. He couldn't shake the temptation to research Harper's escape from Harvey Meade, the horrifying details that only she held, the missing pieces of her trauma. He'd crossed so many lines with her already, watching her windows, spying with a drone, even the severed head in her bird feeder, acts of obsessive protection. Yet prying into her public history, into the raw wounds of her past, felt too invasive, too much like a betrayal of the fragile trust they were building. He needed her to trust him, to offer her truth willingly, not to have it stolen from her.
The morning after their intense encounter, Harper was up early, making coffee and waffles, attempting a